The ocean has always been here. Before there were cities beneath the waves, before there were bustling reefs filled with darting fish and scuttling crabs, before even the land was covered with trees or grass, there was the sea. It stretched wide and endless, a blue blanket wrapped around the young earth. Its surface was stirred by winds, and its depths were hidden in silence. And within those depths, life began to stir. The very first creatures of the ocean were not grand or fierce. They had no teeth, no bones, no shells to guard them. Instead, they were soft, delicate, and nearly invisible, shapes made almost entirely of water. They floated quietly, letting the sea itself carry them. And though they seemed fragile, they held within them the power of survival. These were the first jellyfish. If you could drift back through time, far beyond memory, you would find them pulsing gently in the dark. Their bells were small, their movements unhurried. They were not hunters in the way sharks would later be. They were not builders like the coral. They simply drifted, rising and sinking with the tides, their lives guided by the rhythm of the sea. Even in those earliest days, the jellyfish carried light. Tiny sparks of bioluminescence glowed faintly inside their translucent bodies. It was not a blinding light, but a soft shimmer like starlight caught in water. In the black depths where no sunlight could reach, this glow flickered like lanterns in the distance. The ocean, once dark and silent, began to shine with living stars. The glow had a purpose. Some believe it kept predators away, startling them with sudden flashes. Others think it drew in tiny prey, guiding them into the jellyfish's drifting tentacles. But perhaps the glow was simply part of the jellyfish's being, as natural to them as breathing is to us. Whatever its reason, it made the sea feel alive, like the sky above and the ocean below were reflections of one another. Stars above, glowing jellyfish below. And so the jellyfish became the first keepers of light in the ocean. They did not roar or chase or fight. They survived with patience, carried by currents, shining softly into the dark. Close your eyes and imagine yourself drifting there with them. The earth is young, the world is quiet. The continents have not yet taken their shape. The only sound is the hush of waves against stone and the endless silence of the deep. And there, all around you, thousands of tiny glowing bells rise slowly through the water. They move without hurry, without fear. Their glow surrounds you, soft and endless, like being wrapped in a dream. Over time, the jellyfish grew in number. The seas became dotted with their lantern-like shapes. Some were no larger than raindrops, while others grew wide as shields. Each one pulsed in rhythm, as if the whole ocean were breathing with them. Their migrations began then, too. Each night, they rose from the dark depths to meet the gentle light of the moon. And each morning, they sank again into the shadows, safe from the brightness of day. It was a pattern older than memory itself, a rhythm that still continues in our oceans now. Imagine this vast migration. A curtain of glowing shapes drifting upward together, filling the waters with soft light. Like a slow tide of stars, they climb, covering the sea in a veil of shimmer. And then, as dawn approaches, they fade back into the depths, leaving the surface still and empty once more. Though the jellyfish left no bones to fossilize, no shells to last, their story is not lost. It is carried forward in their very existence. Every jellyfish drifting through the seas today is a descendant of those first soft shapes, carrying the memory of ancient waters within their being. In this way, the jellyfish are time travelers. They are a link between the earth as it once was and the ocean as it is now. While countless other creatures rose and vanished, the jellyfish endured. Their softness became their strength. Their patience became their survival. And so, even now, when you see a jellyfish glowing in the dark, you are looking at something older than history. You are looking at a living star of the sea carrying the memory of the first glow in ancient waters. The story of Jellyfish Fields, then, does not begin in Bikini Bottom. It begins here in the earliest oceans. It begins with the first shimmer in the dark, the first pulse of a jellyfish's bell. It begins with the ocean learning to glow. The early seas were not silent forever. With time, new forms of life began to stir. Tiny creatures with shells drifted through the water, their hard coverings protecting them from the unknown. Others sprouted fins, learning to dart quickly, flashing through the ocean like streaks of silver. Some grew sharp teeth, some developed eyes, and slowly the seas began to fill with motion and struggle. But even as the oceans grew more crowded, the jellyfish endured. They did not chase prey with speed. They did not defend themselves with shells or bones. Instead, they relied on the same patience that had carried them since the beginning. They floated, they glowed, they waited. And somehow it was enough. When the first great predators appeared, their shadows cutting through the water, the jellyfish simply drifted out of reach. When entire species rose and fell in waves of extinction, the jellyfish pulsed on unharmed by the turning of ages. It seemed as though nothing could end them. For unlike creatures that depended on strength or sharpness, the jellyfish asked nothing from the world but time. And the ocean gave it to them endlessly. Imagine those ancient seas. Above, the sky was strange, filled with storms and fire. The land was bare, with no trees to soften the air. But beneath the waves, life glowed quietly. The jellyfish floated in vast blooms, their bells shimmering as they rose and fell. From a distance, it must have looked like the ocean itself was alive with light, like an underwater galaxy unfolding in silence. The glow of the jellyfish also played its part in shaping the sea. As they drifted, they fed on plankton, balancing the smallest creatures of the ocean. In their migrations, they carried energy from one layer of water to another, linking the deep and the shallow in an endless cycle. In their patience, they supported life itself, though they did so without intention, without plan. Some ancient storytellers, long before science began to explain the ocean, believed the jellyfish were fragments of fallen stars. They imagined that when the heavens grew too full, the stars fell into the sea where they softened and learned to drift. Others thought the jellyfish were lanterns placed by the ocean gods, lighting the way for creatures who would come after. And in truth, there is a kind of holiness in their glow, a reminder that life itself can shine without fire, without heat, without noise. Even now, when you look at a jellyfish, you see the same form that drifted through oceans millions of years ago. Their bodies have hardly changed. The same soft bell, the same trailing tendrils, the same gentle pulse. While other creatures evolved into countless shapes, claws, fins, scales, feathers, the jellyfish remained as they were, because what they had was enough. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself drifting in those early seas. You are weightless, surrounded by water that stretches in every direction. There are no ships, no reefs, no noise, only the endless quiet of the young ocean. And there, rising from the depths, A bloom of jellyfish surrounds you. Their bells glow softly, pulsing in rhythm. The water shimmers with their light, and as you drift among them, you feel time itself slowing. There is no need to hurry. There is no need to chase. You are simply carried as they are carried. The first glow in ancient seas was not just light, it was a promise. A promise that life did not need to be fierce to endure. That softness would last. That patience, too, could survive. And so the jellyfish carried that promise through ages of change. They were there when the first fish opened their eyes. They were there when creatures crawled from the sea onto the land. They were there when forests spread across the earth, when dinosaurs roamed, when the continents shifted and cracked. Through it all, the jellyfish pulsed quietly, glowing softly, enduring without question. The sea remembers. Every wave carries the memory of these ancient lights, and every jellyfish drifting now is a reminder of the first glow that lit the darkness. The world above changed countless times, but beneath the surface the glow endured, and it still endures even now. The oceans are full of cycles. Tides rise and fall, guided by the pull of the moon. Currents weave through the deep, carrying warmth and life from one shore to another. Seasons shift, stirring migrations across thousands of miles. But even before fish and whales learned to follow these patterns, the jellyfish were already moving in time with the sea. Their migrations were not across continents nor through vast distances, but along the quiet ladder of depth. Each night they rose from the shadows, climbing toward the surface in slow, steady pulses. Each morning they sank again, returning to the darkness below. This movement, called the vertical migration, is still one of the largest journeys on Earth, not in miles, but in sheer numbers. Billions of creatures, tiny plankton, glowing jellyfish, and more, rise and fall together like an unseen tide of life. Imagine the first time this rhythm began. The ocean dark, the stars shining faintly above, the water cool and endless. From the deep, faint glimmers rise. First one jellyfish, then another, then hundreds, then thousands. They drift upward, their bells glowing faintly like lanterns carried by invisible hands. From above, the sea would shimmer softly, like the reflection of a starlit sky. At dawn, the glow fades as they sink back into the dark. The water stills, and the surface seems empty once more. But in the depths, the glow lingers, waiting for night to return. This endless rising and sinking is not only a journey of survival, but also a bridge between worlds. The jellyfish feed near the surface, where plankton gather in the moonlight. Then they return to the depths, carrying energy downward into the darker waters. Without words, without intention, they weave the layers of the sea together, binding the shallow and the deep into one living whole. Perhaps this is why so many legends describe them as messengers. Messengers between night and day. Messengers between surface and deep. Messengers between the living sea and the dreamlike unknown. And though the legends may have been born from wonder, there is truth in them still. For to watch a jellyfish migration is to witness patience turned into power. A power not of force, but of rhythm. A power not of conquest, but of persistence. Close your eyes and drift with them now. Feel yourself rising through the water, carried not by effort, but by the sea itself. Above, the faint silver of moonlight filters down, growing brighter with each slow pulse of your bell. All around you, glowing shapes drift upward too, each one moving in silence, each one glowing faintly in the blue. The water feels cool and endless, the silence deeper than thought. There's no need to swim, no need to rush. The tide carries you upward, the glow surrounds you, and the stars above seem close enough to touch. For millions of years, this rhythm continued, unchanged. The world above shifted, continents drifted, mountains rose, ice spread and melted again. But beneath the waves, the jellyfish rose and fell in their endless dance. They had no need for change. They had found balance long ago. In time, other creatures began to follow the glow. Some fish rose with the jellyfish, drawn by the plankton. Others lingered in the shadows, waiting for their chance to feed. And still, the jellyfish endured. Even when predators gathered, snapping at their drifting bells, they continued their rhythm. For every jellyfish taken, countless more pulsed onward, drifting, glowing, carrying the memory of the first seas with them. There is something eternal in this patience, a reminder that survival does not always belong to the strongest or the fastest. Sometimes it belongs to the ones who endure, the ones who flow with the tide instead of against it, the ones who find strength in softness and light in silence. Even now, when you watch a jellyfish bloom rise through the night waters, you are seeing this ancient memory play out again. The same glow, the same rhythm, the same quiet persistence that began so long ago. It has never ended. It will never end. And so, jellyfish remain, not as conquerors of the sea, but as keepers of its oldest rhythm. Not as hunters of power, but as lanterns of patience. And their glow, the first glow of the ancient seas, still shines softly in every ocean, carrying the memory of beginnings. As the ages turned, the jellyfish drifted onward. They survived through storms, through shifting seas, through the rise and fall of countless other creatures. They endured not because they were fierce, but because they were simple. They asked little from the ocean, and in return, the ocean carried them. The land above grew forests and rivers. Great reptiles roamed across continents. Birds filled the skies, and later, mammals took their place. Civilizations rose, built cities, and gazed out upon the sea with wonder. But through it all, beneath the waves, the jellyfish pulsed quietly, glowing softly, as they always had. They were older than mountains, older than trees, older than stars as we see them now. And yet they were still here, patient, unchanged, eternal. Imagine for a moment what it means to drift through so much time. To exist not for years or centuries, but for millions upon millions of years. Each bloom of jellyfish rises, drifts, and fades. But the line continues. The memory endures, carried in their soft forms, passed down through endless generations. The same glow that shimmered in the first oceans still shimmers today. To lie among them is to lie with history itself. Not history written in books, but history written in light. Soft, patient light that needs no words to be understood. Close your eyes and picture the deep again. The world above is loud and restless. But down here in the silent water, you are surrounded by a bloom of jellyfish. Their bells pulse gently. Their tendrils trail like threads of silk. Their glow surrounds you in a halo of calm. The water feels warm and steady, carrying you without effort. You breathe with the rhythm of the sea, and you feel yourself becoming part of the endless drift. Perhaps this is why the ocean still feels so calming. It carries the memory of beginnings. It carries the patience of jellyfish who have never hurried, never fought, never changed, yet always survived. When sailors first looked out over the waves, they sometimes caught sight of glowing shapes beneath the surface. Some feared them, thinking the lights were spirits or omens. Others followed them, believing they would lead to safe waters. But all who saw them felt something stir, wonder, awe, and perhaps a strange peace. For there is something deeply human in watching the sea glow with its own light, as if reminding us that life is not always fire and speed. Sometimes it is patience. Sometimes it is drift. Sometimes it is glow. And so the story of Jellyfish Fields begins not in Bikini Bottom, but here in these ancient waters. It begins with the first pulse of light, the first rhythm of survival, the first glow that softened the darkness. High above the oldest seas, beyond the trenches where time feels endless, lies a meadow unlike any other. It is not made of grass, nor earth, nor stone. It is a field woven from the sea itself, rolling hills of kelp, soft valleys of sand, and wide open waters that stretch like a sky without end. This is Jellyfish Fields, a place where the ocean takes on the quiet beauty of a dream. The water here is gentle. It moves like a slow breeze, carrying faint currents that ripple through the seagrass and dance across the sandy floor. Sunlight slips down in shimmering shafts, breaking into waves of gold and green that flicker like lanterns across the meadow. The sea feels lighter here, as though it were built for rest, for drifting, for calm. And drifting through it all are the jellyfish. They move in patient rhythm, bells pulsing softly, their translucent bodies catching the sunlight until they seem to glow from within. Each one trails delicate tendrils, so fine and thin they look like strands of spun glass. Together they drift in groups, some small, some stretching as far as the eye can see, transforming the meadow into a living, glowing kingdom. No walls surround it, no rulers command it, and yet it feels whole, complete, like a world unto itself. A kingdom not of power, but of presence, not of conquest, but of calm. The creatures of Bikini Bottom know this place well. SpongeBob, Patrick, and even Squidward have wandered here, chasing the drifting jellyfish or simply lying back to watch them float by. But long before they came, this meadow was already alive with quiet motion. The jellyfish have always belonged here, pulsing gently over the rolling hills, filling the waters with their glow. If you listen closely, you can almost hear them. Not voices, not words, just the soft rhythm of their bells. It is a steady beat, like a heart, or the rise and fall of breath. Each pulse sends them drifting forward, then back, never in haste, always in balance. The whole field moves to this rhythm, as though the jellyfish are conducting a silent orchestra and the sea itself is listening. Imagine yourself standing on the sandy floor of this meadow. The ground is smooth beneath your feet, cool and steady. Above you, sunlight pours down in scattered rays, painting the water with colors that shift and shimmer like glass. All around you, jellyfish drift, slow, glowing, endless. Their tendrils catch the light, and for a moment, you feel as though you are standing among lanterns floating in the sky. The field stretches beyond sight. Hills rise and fall, blanketed in swaying seagrass. Soft coral blooms in quiet corners, their branches rocking gently in the tide. Small fish dart through, weaving between jellyfish bells as if the meadow were their own playground. Yet no sound breaks the calm. Even their motion feels hushed, as if the very water asks for stillness here. This is why it is called a kingdom, not because it is ruled, but because it commands respect. Every creature that enters seems to understand its rhythm. Sharks pass silently, their fins slipping between the glowing blooms. Turtles glide slowly, their shells catching the soft light. Even the smallest creatures, the snails and starfish and tiny plankton, move with care as if they know they walk across sacred ground. In this place, time slows. Minutes stretch into hours, hours blur into days. The jellyfish keep no clocks, no calendars. Their world is measured only by the steady pulse of their glow. To join them, even for a moment, is to leave behind the rush of the world above and step into a softer rhythm. The rhythm of the sea, the rhythm of calm, the rhythm of drift. And so Jellyfish Fields stands as a kingdom unlike any other. A kingdom not built but grown, not guarded but open, not hurried but eternal. It is a meadow for those who seek quiet, a sanctuary for those who need rest. A kingdom where the only law is patience and the only crown is light. If you drift deeper into Jellyfish Fields, you will notice how the landscape changes, yet always remains soft and welcoming. The rolling, sandy hills become broader, their peaks swaying with tall strands of kelp that reach toward the surface like an underwater forest. The kelp leaves ripple gently in the current, brushing against one another with a faint, whispering sound that feels almost like a lullaby. Between the kelp, schools of tiny silver fish move in shimmering clouds. They dart and twirl, their scales catching beams of sunlight until they look like sparks drifting through the water. And yet, they never break the calm. Even their quick movement seems softened here, as though the water itself cradles every motion in a slow embrace. The jellyfish glide among them unbothered, their bells rising and falling like slow, patient heartbeats. Some are no larger than coins, barely visible against the golden light. Others are wide and luminous, their bodies glowing faintly blue or green, casting soft halos across the sandy floor. Together they weave through the kelp and the drifting fish, turning the entire meadow into a dance of light and shadow. There are moments, standing here, when it feels as though the water has become the sky and you are standing among drifting clouds. The jellyfish are the stars, glowing softly in endless constellations. The seagrass is the horizon, rising and falling in gentle waves. And you are part of it all, quiet, weightless, timeless. The creatures of Bikini Bottom often wander into this kingdom, each with their own purpose. SpongeBob comes here to chase jellyfish, his net waving clumsily through the water. Patrick follows, not for the catch, but simply for the joy of floating among the glowing blooms. Even Squidward, reluctant and weary, has found himself drifting through this place, his clarinet tucked under one arm, his eyes half closed, in reluctant peace. They may not always realize it, but in these moments, they are part of something greater. Every laugh, every chase, every pause echoes softly in the water, then vanishes into the stillness of the field. The jellyfish remain, unhurried, unbothered, eternal. Legends whispered that Jellyfish Fields is not only a meadow, but also a memory of the first seas. That the jellyfish who drift here carry with them the light of their ancestors, the same glow that once filled ancient oceans. Some say this is why the field feels so timeless, because it is not just a place, but a continuation of history, a fragment of the sea's earliest dream. When the sun sets above, the meadow changes once more. The shafts of golden light fade, replaced by deeper blues and purples. The jellyfish begin to glow more brightly, their bodies lighting up the water like lanterns released into the night. One by one, they pulse with a quiet rhythm until the entire field seems alive with floating stars. No sound stirs here, only the hush of water, the sway of kelp, the slow beating of countless bells. Close your eyes and you can almost feel it. The gentle pull of the current on your body. The coolness of water brushing your skin. The glow of countless jellyfish surrounding you, their light softening the darkness, guiding you deeper into rest. Here the kingdom becomes not just a place of beauty, but of comfort. A space where worries cannot follow, where time seems to pause, where even thought begins to drift. The jellyfish lead you into stillness, their glow a reminder that survival can be soft, that strength can be patient, that life can move at its own gentle rhythm. The longer you remain in Jellyfish Fields, the more the world outside fades away. The noise of bustling towns, the rush of work, the chatter of voices, all grow distant like echoes from another life. Here, only the sea remains. Only the glow, only the drift, only the quiet kingdom of jellyfish. And in that quiet, you begin to understand. This meadow is not empty. It is full of light, full of memory, full of calm. It is a kingdom without walls, a sanctuary without end. As the glow of the jellyfish brightens under the evening sea, the other creatures of the meadow join the rhythm of the drift. A gentle current curls through the rolling hills, carrying with it tiny plankton that glitter faintly in the dim light. The jellyfish pulse among them, their tendrils trailing gracefully, gathering nourishment in silence. Nothing about the motion is hurried. Even the act of feeding seems softened here, wrapped in patience. A crab scuttles across the sandy floor, its shell catching a flicker of light from a passing bloom. It pauses, claws raised, then lowers them again, as though realizing there is nothing to defend against. The jellyfish drift by without notice, and the crab, lulled by the quiet rhythm, settles back into the sand. Not far away, a sea turtle glides through the meadow. Its shell is ancient, worn smooth by years of travel, but its motion is effortless, steady. The turtle drifts among the jellyfish without fear, knowing their sting is gentle, their glow a guide rather than a threat. For a moment, it seems as though turtle and jellyfish belong to the same current, pulsing together in a rhythm older than memory. Above, the water darkens into twilight blues. The last traces of sunlight fade, leaving the meadow to its own glow. The jellyfish lanterns burn brighter now, filling the sea with their bioluminescence. They shimmer like constellations scattered across the sky, as if the stars themselves have drifted down to rest among the seagrass. The field becomes a dreamscape. The hills of sand roll softly into shadow. The kelp sways like tall curtains in the breeze, and the jellyfish pulse in silence. No boundaries hold them, no walls enclose them. They simply exist, gliding, glowing, eternal. To wander here at this hour is to feel the world pause. Each step across the sand is muffled by the sea. Each breath is slow, drawn in rhythm with the jellyfish bells. The stillness becomes a lullaby, wrapping itself around you until your own thoughts grow soft, quiet, and weightless. This is the secret of Jellyfish Fields. It is not only a place where jellyfish drift, it is a place where the ocean itself seems to breathe. Each pulse, each current, each glow is part of a larger rhythm, a rhythm that asks nothing of you but stillness. It is a kingdom not of sound or speech, but of silence. A silence that soothes, a silence that invites, a silence that heals. Even the smallest creatures play their part in this kingdom's harmony. Tiny shrimp hide among the seagrass, their delicate bodies glowing faintly when brushed by a jellyfish's tendril. Seahorses anchor themselves to kelp fronds, rocking gently in the tide, their curled tails swaying like pendulums in a slow clock. The meadow is alive with motion, yet none of it disturbs the stillness. It only deepens it. Legends told by the sea creatures say that the jellyfish are guardians of the field. Not protectors in the way of warriors, but guardians of rhythm, keepers of peace. As long as the jellyfish drift, the field remains calm. As long as their glow fills the water, the kingdom endures. Perhaps that is why creatures return here again and again, not just for beauty, but for the comfort of knowing this place never changes. If you listen long enough, you might begin to hear the rhythm of the jellyfish as more than just movement. It becomes a heartbeat, steady and sure, a song without sound, a reminder that the world can be soft and that peace is not something we must chase. It is something we can drift into, slowly, quietly, endlessly. And so Jellyfish Fields becomes the jellyfish of jellyfish. Fields may seem like eternal drifters, content to float endlessly among the rolling hills of sand and swaying kelp. But if you watch closely, if you truly allow yourself to drift with them, you will notice something almost imperceptible. A rhythm not only of glowing pulses, but of movement, of travel. For even here, in the calmest of meadows, the jellyfish follow hidden migrations. They do not march like armies, nor fly like flocks of birds across the sky. Their journeys are slower, softer, written into the very currents of the sea. At first, you may not see it at all. The jellyfish appear scattered, drifting wherever the water takes them. But given time, you notice patterns. One by one, they move together, bells rising and falling in unison, their bodies turning with the current, their glowing tendrils streaming like banners. And soon the meadow is filled with countless glowing shapes, all drifting in the same direction, as though answering a call older than memory. Why do they travel? No one can say for certain. Perhaps they follow the food that blooms with the shifting seasons. Perhaps they rise and fall with the moon, their movements drawn by tides too ancient to name. Or perhaps it is simply their nature, to drift, to wander, to seek without destination. What is certain is that the migration is real. And when it begins, the meadow itself seems to change. The stillness remains, but within it is a new energy, a sense of motion, a purpose, though never hurried. It is as though the entire field has become part of a greater journey, each jellyfish carrying with it a thread of light that weaves into a tapestry of migration. Imagine yourself standing once more in the meadow, surrounded by jellyfish glowing in hues of blue and silver. At first, they drift around you in quiet spirals, some rising toward the sunlit surface, others lowering into the twilight depths. But then, as if guided by a silent signal, they begin to turn. One by one, they drift in the same direction, their bells pulsing gently, their glow steady. Soon you are surrounded by a current of light, countless jellyfish flowing past you like stars in a slow river. The meadow no longer feels still. It feels alive, moving, carrying you with it. And yet there is no rush, no panic, no urgency. The migration unfolds in the same patient rhythm as everything else in their kingdom. It is less a journey of distance and more a journey of presence, a reminder that even the calmest creatures are part of greater cycles. Legends say the jellyfish follow the moon. that when its pale light spills across the waves above, it calls to them, drawing them from the fields toward distant waters. Others believe they follow ancient currents, rivers within the sea that flow unseen, guiding them from one resting place to another. Whatever the reason, their migration remains one of the sea's most quiet mysteries, hidden in plain sight. And perhaps this is why it feels so soothing to witness. It is not a chase, not a rush, not a scramble for survival. It is a drifting together, a shared rhythm, a journey without borders. The jellyfish move not because they must, but because it is who they are. Creatures of motion, creatures of glow, creatures of drift. As you watch, you may feel yourself carried along with them. The current brushes gently against your body, pulling you forward, and you allow yourself to follow. With each pulse, with each glow, you drift deeper in their migration. The world outside fades. The noise of thought grows softer, and all that remains is the journey, slow, patient, endless. The hidden migrations of jellyfish remind us that not all travel is about reaching a place. Sometimes it is about the act of moving itself. Sometimes it is enough simply to drift, to follow the tide, to glow quietly in the dark. And as you follow them now, you begin to understand. Their journey is not to escape, not to conquer, but simply to continue. The migrations of jellyfish do not follow a straight line, nor a path marked on any map. Instead, they flow like rivers of light, bending and curling through the ocean, guided by currents too vast to see. The sea itself seems to carry them, as though it remembers where they must go. At times, the migration feels almost invisible. The jellyfish drift so slowly that to the eye they appear still. But if you remain with them, if you give yourself to their rhythm, you begin to notice the subtle pull, a steady movement toward something unseen, a soft thread weaving through the meadow, drawing them onward without effort. When the moon is high and full, the jellyfish rise closer to the surface. Their bodies shimmer beneath the pale light, turning the waves into a sky of stars. They drift together in wide clusters, pulsing in harmony, their bells glowing brighter as if answering the call of the moon. The surface ripples softly, catching their light until it seems as though the sea itself is glowing. Other times, when the sea grows cold and the nights stretch long, they descend into the deeper waters. The glow fades slightly, wrapped in the darker blues of the deep, but it never disappears. Down there in the quiet shadows, their migration continues, unseen by most, yet no less steady. They drift along unseen highways of current, carried toward places known only to them. And always the field itself shifts with their absence and return. When they leave, the meadow feels quieter, softer, like a dream waiting to be filled. The seagrass sways alone, the hills of sand glimmer faintly, and the water grows still. But soon enough they return, flowing back into the meadow like stars returning to the night sky. And once again, the kingdom of Jellyfish Fields glows with their patient light. The creatures of Bikini Bottom may not fully understand these migrations, but they feel them. SpongeBob notices when the fields are thick with glowing blooms and when they seem emptier, more hushed. Patrick feels the difference too, though he cannot explain it. Only that sometimes the fields are full of play, and sometimes they are quiet, waiting. Even Squidward, though reluctant to admit it, senses the change in the water, the rhythm shifting with the jellyfish's unseen journey. But for the jellyfish, this is simply life. To drift, to move, to follow the currents that have carried their kind for millions of years. They do not question, they do not resist. They simply glow and let the sea carry them. If you let yourself follow them, you begin to feel what they feel. The push of the tide against your body. The gentle rise and fall as you are carried forward. The endless patience of movement without effort. Each moment blends into the next until you are no longer a traveler, but part of the migration itself. And perhaps this is why their hidden journeys feel so soothing. They remind us that movement does not always mean striving. That travel does not always require struggle. That it is possible to be carried, to drift, to trust the current, and still arrive where you are meant to be. In the silence of the meadow, the jellyfish begin their migration again. The glow gathers, the rhythm builds, and slowly the kingdom shifts. And if you close your eyes, you can feel it. The pull of the tide, the steady beat of countless bells, the hush of the sea carrying you forward. Not rushed, not forced, not hurried. Just drifting, glowing, continuing. The hidden migrations are not a secret kept from us. They are a secret shown to us. Softly, quietly, if we are patient enough to see. And as you drift with the jellyfish now, you begin to feel that secret too. That life is not always about where we go, how we move through the water along the way. Far beyond the familiar slopes of Jellyfish Fields, the sea opens into a quiet expanse. Here the water feels broader, deeper, as though the ocean is breathing in its sleep. The jellyfish drift together, their bells rising and falling in patient rhythm, glowing softly in the endless blue. The farther they go, the more the meadow fades behind them. The seagrass grows thinner, the sandy hills stretch longer, and the gentle landmarks of the field dissolve into the greater sea. Yet the jellyfish do not turn back. They move forward, unhurried, as though carried on a memory older than time itself. In this wide, quiet space, the migrations become clearer. The jellyfish gather in larger clusters, their bells pulsing together like a slow heartbeat. The current draws them onward, weaving them into long, flowing ribbons that stretch across the water. To look upon them is to see rivers of light threading through the sea, curving and bending as if the ocean itself is sketching glowing lines across its canvas. Some creatures follow at a distance. Tiny fish swim in and out of the glowing ribbons, darting between the soft bells as though weaving their own smaller journeys. Even the plankton seem to drift alongside, carried by the same unseen path. It is as though the jellyfish migration creates not only a journey for themselves, but a safe, glowing passage for others as well. Night after night, the jellyfish continue. The surface above them glimmers faintly with starlight, the moon's reflection weaving across the waves. Each jellyfish answers with a glow of its own, as though the sea and the sky are speaking in quiet harmony. Below, the deeper waters stretch into shadows, yet the glowing bells form a constellation all their own, guiding one another through the silence. It is not a migration of urgency. There is no haste in their movement, no rush to reach an end. Instead, it feels like a ritual, an ancient rhythm repeated through countless ages. The jellyfish are not seeking a destination so much as honoring a cycle. The endless dance of drifting and returning, leaving and glowing their way home again. At times, the sea around them grows restless. A current shifts. A storm passes far above. The waves ripple harder than before. But even then, the jellyfish do not resist. Their bells fold and open, their bodies yielding to the water, letting it carry them where it will. In that surrender, there is a strength deeper than resistance. No matter how the current twists, they remain steady, glowing softly as they drift. And so their journey continues. Through currents, through storms, through the great silence of the sea, they remain patient. The migration is not measured in distance or speed, but in light. In each pulse of their bells, in each glow shared with another, in each quiet movement forward. As the days and nights drift into one another, the migration seems to blur into a dream. It becomes difficult to tell whether they are moving through the sea or whether the sea is moving through them. Perhaps both are true. Perhaps the migration is not only the path of jellyfish, but the path of the ocean itself, carried in glowing threads that have no beginning and no end. To follow them is to feel this dream. You drift with them, slow and steady, the glow of their bells surrounding you in every direction. The silence of the sea presses gently against your ears until all that remains is the rhythm of their movement. A glow, a pulse, a breath. Time loses its meaning, and you find yourself floating not through water, but through eternity. Eventually, the meadow lies far behind, hidden by the folds of the sea. Yet you feel no distance, no loss. The migration itself is home. The glowing company of the jellyfish, the guiding current, the dreamlike rhythm, this is enough. And so, like them, you drift, without hurry, without fear, carried by the hidden journey, glowing softly in the quiet, deep. The sea has carried them far, through deep corridors of shadow, through wide stretches of glowing current, through the dreamlike silence where only the pulse of bells could be heard. And now, slowly, almost without notice, the jellyfish turn back. Not with decision, not with command, but with the same quiet rhythm that guided them outward. The ocean itself begins to lean toward home, and the jellyfish follow. Their migration, though hidden, is always circular. The glowing rivers they form are not roads that end, but loops that return. Like the moon rising and falling, like the tide rolling out and back, the jellyfish weave their journeys in cycles. They do not lose their place because the sea itself is their map. The first signs of return are subtle. A cooler current brushes past, familiar as an old memory. The water grows softer, lighter, carrying the scent of distant meadows. The glowing bells pulse a little brighter as though they can sense the nearness of home. As they drift back toward Jellyfish Fields, the ocean around them seems to prepare. The sandy plains grow more welcoming. The seagrass begins to sway in anticipation. Long before maps were drawn, before sailors charted the sea, the ocean already held its own stories. They were not written in books or carved into stone. They were whispered by currents, painted in glows, carried on the hush of waves. And many of those stories began here, in the glowing meadow known as Jellyfish Fields. The meadow itself is timeless. Generations of jellyfish have drifted through its seagrass valleys, glowing softly in the dark, turning the water into a lantern for anyone who passed by. To watch them was to see magic, gentle and unspoken, yet undeniable. And so from this light, legends were born. Some say the meadow was a gift from the moon. On a night when the world was still young, the moon looked down upon the dark sea and longed to see her light reflected below. She wept tears of silver that fell into the waves, sinking into the sand at the bottom of the ocean. Where those tears touched, the sand began to glow, and from that glow rose the first jellyfish. gentle lanterns of the sea carrying the moon's light wherever they drifted. Even now, when the moon is full, the jellyfish shine a little brighter, as though remembering their celestial parent. Others tell a different story, that the meadow was born from a dream. It is said that the ocean once dreamed of stars, longing to hold in her depths the same brilliance she saw above her. In her sleep, she created glowing creatures, delicate, drifting lights that mirrored the sky. When the ocean awoke, she found the dream still alive, pulsing gently in her waters. Those dream-born creatures became the jellyfish, and the meadow where they gathered became a place where sea and sky touched, not above but below. There are legends, too, of the meadow as a sanctuary. One story tells of a storm so great that it shook the sea from surface to floor. The waves tore through coral reefs, the winds scattered fish into the open waters, and the shadows of predators hunted everywhere. But deep within a valley, hidden from the fury of the storm, lay a field where jellyfish gathered in light. Their glow formed a barrier, a curtain of gentle sparks that kept the danger away. Many creatures fled there, finding safety in the meadow's embrace, and when the storm finally passed, they carried the story with them. From that time on, the glowing meadow was remembered as a place of peace, where even the smallest fish could find rest beneath the jellyfish's patient light. Each legend, whether of moonlight, dream, or sanctuary, carries the same truth, that the meadow is more than a place. It is a memory woven into the ocean, a story retold with every pulse of glowing bells. The jellyfish do not speak, yet their drifting forms whisper these tales to all who watch, reminding them of the sea's hidden magic. For the people of Bikini Bottom, these legends live quietly in their own way. SpongeBob hears them in the hum of the water whenever he visits the fields at dusk, his imagination filling the glow with endless possibilities. Patrick dreams of the meadow as a giant blanket of stars he can nap beneath, comforted by the idea that the ocean itself is tucking him in. Even Squidward, though he rolls his eyes, cannot entirely deny the feeling that the glow carries something ancient, something worth remembering. Perhaps that is why so many return to the meadow again and again. Not only for the beauty, not only for the peace, but for the sense that here, in this field of glowing light, the ocean is telling them a story older than they can comprehend. A story that shifts with every watcher, every dreamer, every soul that drifts quietly among the bells. And so the legends continue. They are not fixed, not final, but living, glowing softly in the water, waiting for anyone patient enough to listen. The meadow holds them, protects them, and whispers them back into the sea, one pulse at a time. There is a tale sailors once told, passed between them like a secret carried in the foam of the waves. They said that if you sailed far enough and let your ship drift in silence, the ocean might carry you over a glowing meadow where the water itself shone from below. On clear nights, the glow would rise high enough to reach the ship, painting it in silver blue light. Sailors believed this was a blessing, a sign that their voyage would be safe, for the meadow's glow was said to guard against storms and guide lost vessels home. One old story tells of a crew that had wandered for days without food or direction. Their compass spun wildly, their sails hung limp, and the night seemed endless. But one evening, as despair grew heavy, the sea beneath them began to shimmer. First faintly, like fireflies under the water, then brighter, until the ship floated above a vast field of light. The jellyfish drifted together in endless numbers, glowing so brightly that the crew could see each other's faces again. With renewed hope, they followed the glow until it led them back to safer waters. From that day forward, those sailors swore that the glowing meadow was not only real, but a guardian of those who surrendered to the sea. There are other legends, too, ones told not by sailors, but by creatures of the sea itself. In tones, passed like lullabies to their young, they tell of the lantern keepers. These are the jellyfish of the meadow, believed to be keepers of light borrowed from the stars. According to the legend, every jellyfish carries a fragment of starlight within its bell, protecting it as it drifts. When a star falls from the sky, the creatures say it does not vanish. It simply returns to the sea, reborn as a jellyfish glowing in the meadow. To swim among them, then, is to swim among the stars themselves, listening to their silent dreams. One of the most tender tales is about a lonely fish who once wished for the night to never end. He loved the calm, the stars above, and the cool hush of the sea and darkness. The sun, he thought, was too bright, too hurried, too sharp for his gentle heart. So he prayed to the ocean, "Let the night stay. Let me live among the stars forever." The ocean, hearing his wish, did not stop the sun, but gave him something even softer, a meadow where stars drift below the waves. The fish no longer needed the sky. He could swim forever among glowing lights, night and day alike. And so the meadow was said to be born of kindness, a place where even the loneliest could feel surrounded by light. For generations, parents whispered these tales to lull their young to sleep. The glow of jellyfish became more than a sight. It became a comfort, a reminder that the sea itself could soothe and protect. Many believed that to see the meadow was to glimpse the heart of the ocean, glowing softly in its endless dream. Even today, the legends continue to weave themselves into new shapes. SpongeBob imagines the meadow as a lantern lit by jellyfish to guide him on his adventures, while Patrick insists the glow is actually the ocean's nightlight, left on so no one feels afraid. Squidward may scoff, yet even he admits quietly to himself that there is something undeniably comforting in the glow, something that feels like a story too gentle to dismiss. And so the meadow gathers legends like shells upon its shore, each one different, each one whispered into the glow, and all of them part of the sea's long memory. The jellyfish themselves never confirm or deny these stories. They simply drift, glowing patiently as though they are content to let the legends grow around them like seagrass in their field. The meadow does not need to speak, for it already tells its story with light. And those who wander there, whether sailor, fish, or dreamer, carry that light back with them, woven into their own lives, whispered into their own nights, becoming legends of their own. Some legends are soft and comforting, like lullabies. Others are older, wrapped in mystery, carrying a quiet weight that lingers long after they're told. The glowing meadow holds both kinds, for in its light lies wonder, but also questions the sea has never fully answered. One such tale speaks of the silent watcher. It is said that in the center of the meadow, hidden among the drifting bells, there moves a jellyfish unlike any other. Larger than the rest, slower and glowing with a light so deep, it seems to come from within the earth itself. According to the legend, this silent watcher has existed since the beginning, carrying in its body the memory of every migration, every storm, every moonlit night the meadow has ever seen. It does not lead, it does not follow, it simply drifts, holding the meadow's history in its glow. Some say that if you are very quiet and drift long enough among the jellyfish, you may see it watching you, its light pulsing with the rhythm of the ocean's oldest song. Another tale tells of the vanishing meadow. Fisherfolk and wanderers whispered of it long ago, that the glowing meadow does not stay in one place, but disappears and reappears like a dream. On some nights, the fields glow brightly beneath the waves, clear and endless. But on others, they are gone, leaving only darkness and silence behind. Where do they go? The legend says the meadow travels through the sea itself, folding into hidden currents, carrying its glow to places no map can mark. For this reason, many believe the jellyfish were not bound to one field, but were guardians of the whole ocean, appearing wherever their light was most needed. There are even whispers of the meadow's glow having power beyond what eyes can see. Ancient divers returning from the deep told of feeling lighter after drifting among the jellyfish. They spoke of worries dissolving, of dreams becoming vivid and gentle, of their hearts beating in time with the pulse of glowing bells. Some claimed the glow carried healing, that if a creature was tired or afraid, the meadow's light could soothe them, washing away fear like sand from stone. And perhaps this is why so many creatures, even today, feel calmer when they wander through Jellyfish Fields. The legend lives on in their quiet sighs of peace, in the way they linger, unwilling to leave the glow too quickly. One of the most haunting stories is that of the fallen starfish. It is said that long ago, a starfish lived high in the sky, shining brightly among the constellations. But it grew lonely, gazing down at the sea it could never touch. One night it leapt from the sky, falling through the waves, sinking into the deep. The ocean caught it gently, but the starfish's glow began to fade. The jellyfish, moved by its sorrow, gathered around it, each offering a piece of their own light. Together they wove a glow bright enough to keep the starfish alive, though it could never return to the sky. Instead, it remained in the meadow, glowing faintly among the bells, a reminder of the kindness carried in drifting light. Even now, some say that if you look closely, you can see one jellyfish that glows in the shape of a five-pointed star, pulsing a little differently, as though it still remembers the sky it once called home. Not all who hear these stories believe them. Squidward, for one, dismisses them as nonsense, rolling his eyes at the very mention of watchers or vanishing meadows. But SpongeBob listens with wide eyes, seeing in every glow a new adventure waiting to be told. Patrick, half asleep in the grass, insists he once met the fallen starfish, though he cannot recall whether it offered him wisdom or simply asked him for a snack. And so the legends continue to live, not because they are proven, but because they are cherished. For the truth of the glowing meadow is this: it does not resist stories. It invites them. It welcomes every whisper, every dream, every imagination that drifts its way. Its glow does not explain itself, and in that silence, it leaves room for legends to bloom. Each pulse of light is like a page turning, each migration a new chapter, and the meadow itself is the book the ocean never stops writing. And so the legends do not end. They grow, like waves building upon one another, like bells pulsing in the current, like stars multiplying in the sky. Always soft, always shifting, always glowing. The glowing meadow is not just a place in the ocean, it is a place in the imagination. Every creature who drifts through it carries away something different. Some bring back comfort, others mystery, and still others a sense of awe so deep it lingers like a dream long after waking. The legends are not fixed in stone, nor do they need to be. They are woven, like seagrass in the current, bending, swaying, reshaping with every storyteller who drifts among the glow. To the young, the meadow is a world of wonder. They see it as a playground of stars beneath the sea, a place where the jellyfish light their way through secret games and silent songs. To the old, it is a memory of voyages survived, of storms endured, of quiet nights when the glow was the only thing standing between them and despair. And to the dreamers, it is something more than either, a threshold between the sea and the sky, where the impossible feels near enough to touch. One quiet legend says the meadow has no end, that when the jellyfish drift beyond its borders, they carry a fragment of it with them, leaving glowing seeds in distant waters. Over time, those seeds bloom into new meadows, each glowing softly in its own corner of the sea. If this is true, then the ocean is not one meadow, but many, linked by drifting bells and glowing migrations, each reflecting the same gentle story. Perhaps the sea itself is the meadow, and Jellyfish Fields is simply where its heart beats strongest. Another story, told only in whispers, says the glow itself is alive. That the light shining in the jellyfish is not only theirs, but the ocean's breath moving through them. Each pulse of a bell, each shimmer of glow, is the sea itself exhaling softly, dreaming its long, endless dream. So they carry with them not only light, but the rhythm of rest itself. Drifting among them, time seems to dissolve. The minutes stretch, becoming something soft, like the current that folds itself around your body. Hours could pass, and you would not notice. For in the meadow, you are not counting time. You are floating through it. Glow spreads in every direction, a soft blue-green light that bends and shimmers with the water. It does not dazzle, nor does it blind. It comforts. Each flicker feels like a heartbeat, steady and reassuring, until your own pulse seems to match it. And slowly, without effort, your body begins to sway with the field itself, as though you too were a drifting bell, part of the endless migration. It is in this stillness that eternal dreams are born. Dreams that do not rush in or vanish quickly, but linger like tides rising and falling, returning again and again. The creatures of Bikini Bottom know this well. They have all, in their own way, surrendered to the glow of Jellyfish Fields, allowing themselves to drift beyond waking into a place where stories blur into dreams, and dreams blur into silence. SpongeBob, so full of energy in the daylight, lies back here among the seagrass and feels his busy thoughts slow down. The jellyfish drift above him like tiny lanterns, and he imagines them carrying away all the worries he forgot he had. Patrick, already half asleep before he arrives, finds the glow so soothing that he drifts off without a second thought, his breathing deep and steady as though he had always belonged in this meadow. Even Squidward, who insists he does not believe in the magic of glowing fields, cannot resist the calm that steals over him here. The music in his mind grows softer, slower, until it is less a song and more a lullaby. And in that moment, he too is dreaming. The jellyfish themselves seem eternal, not because they never change, but because their rhythm does not. Generation after generation, they return to this meadow, their light pulsing in endless patterns, weaving together past and present. It is said that to drift among them is to drift through all of time, carried by currents that remember beginnings and endings alike. You are not only dreaming, you are dreaming with the ocean. Close your eyes and you can feel it. The slow movement of water brushing against your skin. The glow behind your eyelids, warm and steady. The silence that is not empty but full, full of breathing, full of pulsing bells, full of the ocean's soft, eternal voice. It speaks not in words but in rhythm. It says drift. It says rest. It says you are safe here in the glow of the meadow. And so you drift, not toward an ending, but toward a dream without boundaries. A dream where there is no need to wake because the dream itself is enough. A dream where jellyfish glide endlessly, their lights shimmering like falling stars that never quite reach the ground. A dream where the ocean holds you gently as though you were always meant to float here, in the heart of Jellyfish Fields. The glow grows softer now, as though the meadow itself is sinking into sleep. The bells pulse slower, the light fades to a gentle shimmer, and the seagrass leans over you like a blanket. You are no longer separate from it. You are part of it. And as you drift deeper into the rhythm of the meadow, you realize that this is not just a place of legends or migrations. It is a place of dreams, dreams that do not end, but flow eternally as the sea. As the jellyfish drift, so too does the mind. Thoughts that once felt heavy dissolve into the water, floating away like tiny bubbles rising to the surface. Each breath becomes easier, slower, until it feels as though the sea itself is breathing for you. The current takes your worries, the glow takes your restless thoughts, and together they weave them into something softer, something like sleep. In this quiet, even the smallest movements feel significant. A jellyfish pulses past, its bell expanding and contracting with graceful rhythm. The faint light it carries seems to brush against you, as though leaving a note behind. Not a word, not a sound, just a reminder. You are here, you are drifting, you are safe. The seagrass bends with the current, moving like slow waves of a green ocean within the greater blue. Tiny fish glide through the blades, their silver scales catching fragments of glow before vanishing into the meadow's shadows. Everything is in motion, yet nothing feels rushed. The meadow holds no urgency. It asks nothing of you but to let go, to rest, to drift. SpongeBob dreams as he floats. In his dream, the jellyfish teach him a secret dance, their bells moving in patterns that draw glowing shapes across the water. He follows clumsily at first, but soon his laughter matches the rhythm, and he too glows faintly, as though the meadow has lent him a piece of its light. Patrick, nestled in the soft sand, dreams too, though his dreams are simpler. He imagines a bed of jellyfish drifting him across the sea, their glow carrying him from one star to another. Each star feels soft, each glow feels warm, and he sighs happily in his sleep. Even Squidward, though he would never admit it aloud, finds his dreams touched by the meadow. He sees himself on stage, bathed not in applause, but in a glow that accepts him fully without judgment. For once, he does not feel the need to play perfectly, only to drift with the light. Dreams here are not fleeting. They do not scatter at the edge of waking. They linger like mist clinging to the surface of the sea at dawn. They are not bound by time nor by logic. They are not meant to explain. They are meant to soothe. And as the jellyfish drift endlessly, so too do the dreams, weaving themselves into the eternal rhythm of the meadow. Some say that Jellyfish Fields is more than a place. It is a state of being, a gentle reminder that within the chaos of waves and storms there is also calm. The jellyfish are the ocean's way of whispering. Sleep is part of the journey. Rest is as necessary as motion. Perhaps that is why their glow is so steady, because it is not meant to startle or to excite, but to invite. An invitation into the deeper waters of the self where thoughts grow quiet and the heart beats in rhythm with the sea. The eternal dreams of the meadow do not belong to one creature alone. They are shared. Every being who drifts here contributes to them. The crab who shelters in the sand, the snail who glides slowly across a glowing rock, the schools of fish who pass in shimmering waves, all of them dream together. It is a collective sleep, a shared surrender, as though the entire field has become one mind, resting, one heart glowing. Close your eyes again, and you can feel yourself becoming part of it. The meadow folds around you, gentle and infinite. You drift, not apart from the jellyfish, but among them. Your breath matches their glow, your body sways with their rhythm, your thoughts sink into their silence. And slowly, you realize that you are no longer only dreaming of the meadow, you are the dream itself. The bells pulse, the water hums, the glow deepens, and you drift endlessly into the soft embrace of eternal dreams, the sea beyond jellyfish. Fields may be wide, restless, and unpredictable, but here in this glowing meadow, the world feels contained like a single, endless breath held between heartbeats. It is a place where nothing needs to be hurried, where even the thought of tomorrow seems to dissolve into the glow. And as you surrender to the rhythm of the drifting jellyfish, you discover that the meadow is not only around you, but within you. Each pulse of light seems to echo in your chest. Each soft brush of current seems to flow through your veins. It is as though the boundary between body and water, between dreamer and dream, has disappeared. You are not separate from the sea, you are part of it. The jellyfish drift, and you drift with them, together in an endless procession that has no beginning and no end. The creatures of Bikini Bottom know this feeling too. Sometimes they speak of it quietly, in whispers exchanged at dawn after a night in the meadow. Other times they simply carry it within themselves, unspoken but unmistakable, a calmness that lingers even in the bustle of daylight. For once you have drifted in the glow of Jellyfish Fields, you carry its rhythm forever, like a gentle tide moving beneath your every step. Legends tell that those who fall asleep in the meadow do not simply dream. They connect with dreams that have always been there. As though the field itself holds an archive of every slumber ever taken in its glow. To sleep here is to join a vast tapestry of rest, woven across centuries, bound together by the drifting jellyfish. And when you wake, a part of that tapestry drifts on inside you, quiet but unbreakable. Perhaps that is why the jellyfish never seem to tire. Perhaps their glow is not only light but memory, an endless cycle of dreams carried forward from one generation to the next. Each pulse of their bells may be a reminder, we were here before, we will be here again. Rest, for nothing is lost. SpongeBob in his dream feels this truth. He is no longer just SpongeBob the fry cook, or SpongeBob the friend, or even SpongeBob the dreamer. He is a spark drifting in the glow, one among countless others, each unique, yet all part of the same ocean of light. Patrick, too, finds this dream, though his version is simpler. He imagines himself as a jellyfish, floating without care, carried wherever the current chooses. And in that surrender, He feels joy so deep it hums like a lullaby. Squidward, meanwhile, drifts into a dream where the meadow becomes an audience, each glow a lantern raised in quiet appreciation. No applause, no clamor, just acceptance, as though his presence alone is enough. Even the meadow itself seems to dream. The seagrass sways slower as though in slumber. The currents move gently, like breaths, deepening in sleep. The glow flickers softly, as if the entire field is dozing, carrying its inhabitants with it into a realm beyond waking. This is not sleep that ends with the sunrise. This is something deeper, something eternal. In this place, the concept of endings loses meaning. There is no need to wake, no fear of time passing, no sharp edge where dream breaks into day. Instead, there is only drift, soft, endless, eternal drift. The jellyfish do not ask when or where, they only glow. The sea does not ask how long, you are simply held. And in that surrender, you find not emptiness, but fullness. A fullness that feels like belonging. Perhaps this is what it means to dream eternally, to rest without worry, to drift without direction, to glow without question. It is not an escape from life, but a deeper part of it, hidden like the heartbeat beneath the waves. You do not lose yourself in this meadow. You become more fully yourself, but softer, quieter, at peace. The bells pulse once more. The glow spreads like a sigh. And as your body grows heavier, your thoughts lighter, you realize you are already deeper in the dream than you imagined. Already drifting, already glowing, already carried by the eternal meadow. The ocean knows how to cradle its children. It does not rush them forward, nor does it hold them too tightly. Instead, it offers the rhythm of the tide, the hush of the current, and the gentle lanterns of jellyfish glowing in the dark. Here in the embrace of Jellyfish Fields, every creature finds its place. Not as something separate from the sea, but as part of its unbroken flow. The meadow glows on, though you cannot tell whether it is night or day. Time has no meaning here, only rhythm. The jellyfish rise and fall in patterns older than memory, their light flickering like stars caught in water. Each pulse is a heartbeat, not of one creature alone, but of the ocean itself. And when you drift among them, your heartbeat joins theirs, steady and calm, until it feels as though you have always belonged here. Some say that the glow of the jellyfish is the closest thing the ocean has to eternity. It is not fire which burns and fades,